Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Of course, on the program today, we'll be taking a look at the journey of filmmaking in Nigeria in 2024. Of course, this year has been a promising one for the film industry in Nigeria, whether you believe it or not. But of course, practitioners in the industry do believe that this year has been indeed a fantastic one, but not without its myriads of challenges that we all can overcome if we toe the right path. Joining the conversation now is the Executive Director and CEO, National Film and Video Censors Board. He's a friend of the house, and of course, we're glad to have him in the studio this morning, Dr. Shoaib Hussain. Thank you for being here on the program.
The pleasure is mine. Thanks for having me.
Of the season.
The same to you. It's always good to be home.
Right. Okay, so let's start this way. We'll just take a brief overview of how the year has been for the film industry in Nigeria, especially the cinemas and the blockbusters. How would you describe the journey in 2024?
Well, it has been the year of the good, the bad, but no ugly.
Oh, okay.
I like that. That's nice.
No ugly.
Okay.
No ugly.
Okay.
Maybe some people will describe the announcement by the streaming giant that they are not exiting actually.
I think a lot of people also didn't get
they were not exiting.
The information.
They changed their business strategy actually and said, look, we're not going to be commissioning films as much. Yes, funding of the films, but what we do, we acquire films, which is what most streaming platforms do actually. You know, they are coming into commission is just to make sure that, you know, they put funds in the hands of filmmakers, improve the quality of filmmaking and all that. But now they said, okay, look, if you have a content, we will acquire and put on and for it to get on our platform, you have to go to the cinema, which is the traditional route of distribution of films. Well, good in the sense that this year there have been like an upsurge of increase in revenue, especially cinema revenue, especially filmmakers getting commissioned by some of these streaming platforms and some production outfits to make movies. I mean, off-season release, like a Queen Latifah, for instance, made over 800 million. That means, and this is not December. This is sometimes around August and September. Made over 800 million. That means that we don't have to wait for December to release our films. We can release our good quality films anytime, you know, and then we get people going. And it also means that Nigerians are willing to pay for quality content.
Once it is quality.
Once it is quality content. This year we made a lot of films. All the regular filmmakers made films, you know, from Kunle to Afolayan, to Femi Adebayo, to Toyin Aimaku, to Funke, of course, to Mercy Aigbe, to Bolanle Austin, Ayo Makun, then Bolanle Austin Peters. Then we have a very new entrant, Basketmouth, Bright Okocha, you know, who had a very beautiful story, a ghetto love story that is out there in the cinema. In fact, people call this Dirty December, but I call it Movies December because we have 6 films, 6 solid films in the cinema. And I did like a tour of some of the cinemas 2 days ago, and I was hovering around the ticketing area, and I wanted to find out what are people watching. They are watching Nigerian films. You know, I sat down in one of the films that opened, a Hollywood film that opened with ours, and I sat down in the hall. We were less than 40 people in the hall. But in the other hall, filled up, you know, and people were asking for tickets, you know, in advance and all that. It's a very good development, and we need to build on that as we run. In terms of practice, we have had some not so good news, you know, especially when you consider the incident that happened that claimed the lives of some of our artists in the southeast, you know, on the waterways. And it calls, you know, for some kind of standards, you know, for us to begin to consider matters like insurance in our industry, for us to begin to consider like a production code for the industry and all that. And thankfully, you know, even the practitioners are beginning to realize that we cannot continue like that if we don't have those things in place. So it has been a year of the good. The bad may be all these little, you know, disagreements, you know, which is natural, which is normal in an industry where you have people. But it has all been good this year.
Okay, so talking about the streaming platform and the practices, now some people have accused filmmakers of collecting money from these streaming platforms to make a movie, and they don't make the movie the way they are supposed to be. They spend less of the funds collected. And people said that is why the streaming platform decided to change policy. What's your take on that?
Well, that's not entirely true. I listened to that interview and I thought that there was some of a bit of generalization. I mean, you just made a claim. It's possible. I mean, in every business, people try to cut corners. But I don't even think that those people involved with the streaming platforms are people that can cut those kind of corners. And don't forget, if a streaming platform gives you money, there are some boxes that have to be ticked for the film to get on their platform. If you don't tick those platforms, are they not courageous enough to tell you that, no, we gave you so amount of money? We've not heard that from the streaming platform.
Okay.
But of course, you can suggest, you know, there can be one or two practices there, but I'm not saying completely that that's the reason why the streaming platform left. They have mechanisms to check those who have used their monies and those who have not used their monies. I don't think that those people that are involved are people that we collect money from them and go and buy a house or not deliver and all that. Well, if you don't deliver, that means that you don't have your next job. You know, but that, I mean, I've heard some crew members complain, you know, that the monies they put in the proposal don't actually get to them. But how do they even know the money that is in the proposal?
that got
the
approved
proposal,
in the
yes,
first
and the
place.
rest. So these are some of the things that you hear in the industry. But again, it also calls to the issue of standard. It also calls to the issue of transparency between the producers and the filmmaker, I mean, the practitioners themselves. I mean, we don't have a standard contract up till now. It pains me, but I mean, it's something we are working on now, that we must have a standard contract for people who are going to work so they know what they are paid. They know how much is involved and the rest. And then you don't collect money from someone. I mean, I've had that kind of situation,
And
but
then
no.
you don't appear
You
on
don't
sets.
appear, you know, and then you don't appear on set too. And I've had situations where somebody, a producer, in fact, it's not with the streaming platforms, but while I was on the field, you know, I had a situation where a producer gave a director funds to hire an actor, but he used his goodwill with the actor to bring the actor on set. So if he had told the producer that, oh, I need 100,000 naira for this actor, and they gave him, he will now come and say, Bimblo, please, come and do this work for me. I will just give you this money and the rest of them. So if you have accepted that to get on the set, why do you go back now to say, oh, they actually said the money was 100,000 naira? So there are a lot of things that are not correct there, but it is not true that the streaming platforms left because they gave money to some people. Those guys changed their business model. They discovered that they were spending much money in commissioning than they were getting back in terms of subscription and all that. So they just decided to say, okay, look, guys.
It's business.
It's business. I mean, you just say, look, guys, I will commission, I will acquire. But please go and test these productions at the cinema. If it works there, then we'll now acquire it and put on our platform. And what are they trying to do? Only very few people will watch our cinema.
And
then the next people come back and watch on the streaming platform. This is something that is happening everywhere. Although it is not like, for us, we feel that decision, you know, should be a bit reviewed. Because I'm telling you, when those guys came in and started commissioning production, that's how our production standards got up. That's how people started getting value for the effort they put in films. You find that these guys go on location for as long as 30 days, 2 months. They're on location.
They have to get it right.
They have, in fact, you have to get it right. Otherwise, that production will not get on the platform. So we are hoping that they will review. As the economy improves, they will improve. But it also means that we need to do so much in terms of subscription for them. Because if they don't get more subscribers, they won't be able to invest in the industry.
So let's look at, I mean, this year alone, because your agency is a government agency, and so let's look at government intervention in the sector in 2024. What were some of the things that the federal government, you know, did in this sector? Were there tax incentives? Were there grants? Were there could producers or directors, did they have access to loans? So tell us, what were some of the incentives that government made available to the sector this year?
Okay, at the federal level, the minister was able to get some funding from Afrexim Bank for the industry. We are also, the federal government also got this IDEAS fund, but for the infrastructural development. Because what we lack are the infrastructure to make these films. we don't, and the space to exhibit the films.
Right.
We don't lack funding for production of films because people have been producing films on their own even before the streaming platforms and the others came. They have been raising funds in some way. So we have the IDAS fund, and we also have the AfriExim fund that has come. The modalities are being worked out so that people can be able to access the fund. But for infrastructure development, we need studios like what the Lagos State government is planning with the Film City.
Yes.
I was excited. In fact, the biggest news for me this year was the deal they signed with a Singapore company also, to develop the Film City. So we need to build infrastructure, production lots where people can go and do production from beginning to the end. Now we are leaving it to individuals to build those lots. And government thinks that there's need for us to put those lots there so that they can make their films. I mean, Ibrahim Chata has his lot.
Yes.
Kunle Afolayan have a hub and all that, He needs some support too because, I mean, it's very heavy on him because of diesel and all those stuff, and all that. But he needs some level of support, and he will get that support with the funds like IDAS fund and the rest. On our part as an agency, we want to encourage the development of community cinemas, because we believe that we need space for people to go and watch. If you go to the malls now, you will find people. I mean, I don't pray for us to have like a stampede or no. You will find people filled up, and that's because there are no spaces where they can go to. So we are encouraging people to develop community cinemas around their communities, because like I always say, even before I became ED and I used to come on this program, I said our cinema is elitist. Elitist in the sense that I bought a ticket yesterday for 7,000 naira. How many people can afford 7,000 naira to watch a film? A Nigerian film, 7,000 naira. And then I came all the way from mainland, like Festac Town, Satellite Town, to come and see a film in Ikeja. You know how much the taxi will cost me and all that. And then I get there, I must buy like popcorn. And then if my wife wants to deal with my pocket, she will say shawarma.
I'll buy pizza, chicken.
By the time you calculate that, you find out that it's much. But if you have community cinemas around my area, I just walk there, and then you are not afraid of security or whatever because you know everybody. Yes, if anybody wants to harass me, I say, Abayo, you want to harass me in this community, stuff like that. So if you have that, and then the price will not be much, because it's a community. It's just for 100-seater, 150 people. You sit down, you pay, and you have that example in India. And I recall that the former governor of Fashola sponsored us to India to go and study it. And by the time we came back, I found out that that model will work in Nigeria. So at the level of the National Film and Video Censors Board, we're giving out a waiver, licensing waiver, so that people, to individuals who want to set up community cinema, will not license them for 2 years. Just experiment and try and see that it's working. Because, I mean, the whole talk about ease of doing business is in the heart of the president. Allow people to come in the space and do business. That's why the other day he was saying that he's not the master of price control. Allow supply. So when you have enough spaces,
then it will be easier
for people, access to the films, and then revenue for the filmmakers, because the more space. I mean, look at Funke Akindele with Tribe of Judah last year, 1.5 billion in 41 cinema locations across the country, not the screen. So if we have, let's say, 100 cinema locations, and then we now increase our screens to about 1,000 screens, for instance. You know how much that one would be for revenue for Funke, who has already crossed $500 million in 14 days.
With a new movie.
Let's talk about social media, the use of social media for, let's say, promotion. So how has social media helped the film industry in Nigeria presently now? It
has. I mean, those days we go to the television or radio station. In fact, you hear all those announcements on radio and all that. But now with social media, it's so easy. You see now our practitioners have devised a lot of marketing strategies. They are dancing.
I really enjoyed their strategies this season.
They are changing clothes and all those stuff, and all that. And then winning the audience, getting the audience, creating attention, creating interest, creating desire in the product so that the people can take action. Because there are some of these promo on social media that they watch and they say, look, they want to go and see it. I remember that my family said they want to go and watch because they know that when they go to the hall, they will play the Christmas Carol song of Everybody Loves Jennifer. And we went there, we saw the film, and they came home and they did a video of Everybody Loves Jennifer and all those stuff. Like that. It has expanded, it has made it easy for people to know about some of those films, you know. But social media too has had its own challenge. And in fact, that's the biggest problem of the film industry. Because your movie's out today, tomorrow you see it on any of those platforms.
Yes, I was going
Very
to
true.
It has promoted piracy a lot. That it has even helped them to promote the films.
Yes, I was going to come to the issue of piracy when Bukola mentioned social media. So you can't take away the social media without the piracy, because an example would be, I think there was a user who engaged Femi Adebayo on his 7 Doors, platform. And I think the guy was watching from, I don't know where he was watching from. And he was dull enough to have taken a picture of where he was watching and then made a comment and then put it on. And Femi said, but you're not watching on the streaming platform. And Nia Kimolayan also said, but you're not watching on the streaming platform. So again, things like this are also able to deter the producers and the directors, from forging ahead. Is there anything we're doing in line, with this issue? Because initially, during the days of CDs, it was piracy that was a problem. Now, piracy has found its way again into the streaming platforms. Is there any way, as a country that we can actually deal with this situation?
Yes, there is. And that is what we are trying to do, especially with the Nigerian Communication Commission and the Nigerian Copyright Commission.
And they're both NCC.
Yes, they are all NCCs. I mean, our mandate doesn't have anything to do with fighting pirates.
Right.
But those who are beneficiaries of those who are involved in materials that get pirated easily are our practitioners.
Right.
So we did a letter not too long ago, and then we called the attention to the fact that we should have some kind of thing like a legislation that will enable us shut down any of this platform that doesn't provide some kind of control, doesn't provide some kind of control for pirates, because what they do now is that once you see your film on their platform, you call their attention and they say, oh, we don't know every film that is pirated, so they will flag it and then they will bring it down. But there should be able to be a mechanism, that will make it impossible for these people to pirate your films. And then we need to enforce piracy. The problem that we have in Nigeria is that funding has been a major challenge in enforcing piracy. You find that even the practitioners themselves I remember Femi going to court, Femi Adebayo, going to court with someone who pirated his content and got, judgment and all that. Right. What we should do is that we should make more examples of people like this guy that, engaged them on the platform. I was not watching on the platform. We could get across to him, let him tell us how did you watch the film, and then from there we get to the source, and then we get. But most of the time when we make arrests, we don't arrest the main people. Right. We just arrest these boys who are on the street, pirating the films. And it has gotten bad now because, it's electronically transmitted. When it was CDs, you really have to do so much. But now it's so easy. Somebody will just share. But again, we need to educate people. If I see anything that you share to me, I will just delete. Even the filmmakers themselves, they don't even aware. They are not aware. They are sharing contents of their mates and all that. So we need a lot of education. There are some things that people are doing that they are not. In fact, one of the things we are proposing too, in America, if you go and you start downloading, you are just causing problem for your host. Because they will send him a letter. And he will pay for all the content that you downloaded. So we may get to that into the country. When we do that, all this downloading will stop. Because by the time you download, it's like what the road transport, the people in charge of traffic management do. Now they don't disturb you.
There are cameras everywhere.
They just take your picture. And then when it is time for you to go
renew,
you go and meet
now you don't even have to even wait. They'll send the bill to you straight.
So by the time you download my content, I go and meet your address. I get your IP address. I go there, and then give you a bill. By the time you are forced to pay a bill, then you will know. So we must enforce. In fact, my appeal, and that's one of the things we are proposing, is that we need to make piracy a criminal offense.
Right.
Now it is just civil.
And people, you know, there are consequences for this.
Yeah, there should be a criminal offense. It's not this thing about go to jail for 3 months and pay a fine of 50,000 naira. While I was on the field as a journalist, we've gone to court once, and they sentenced him to 3 months imprisonment or option of fine of 100,000 naira. And he paid.
He paid more than that. He has paid more than that.
Before he was taken back to fulfill the bail condition, he finished everything there. And then that's how he walked out. And so we need to make it a criminal offense. Intellectual property is so... It's like somebody's life.
Right.
Yes.
Somebody has put his life online, and then all you just do is to copy. Oh, no. That's why the only thing that these filmmakers, these December filmmakers were saying were, please, don't pirate our films.
Funke said that.
Don't pirate our films. Piracy is a problem, but we are trying to see how we can solve the problem. You know, we have gotten one part right, which is making IP, like something that you can use as collateral. But I mean, you can go to the bank and say, I'm Tunde Kelani, I've made 40 films. So you can now talk to me. So somebody will now say, okay, give you money. I'm Kunle Afolayan, I'm Jennifer. We have gotten that right, but we must also get this other right. And government is trying. We've had meetings, and we're working at a way to make sure that.
Okay, earlier you talked about America now. So I know that in Africa, Nollywood is #1. I'm sure you will agree with me.
Yes, we conquered Africa, yeah.
Nollywood is #1. But what should we learn from countries like let's say Hollywood, Bollywood? We still need to meet up with those ones. So what should we learn from them?
From them?
Yes.
Collaboration. They do a lot of collaboration. If you take a typical Hollywood film, you will find out that there are so many studios, so many executives that are involved in the production.
That's true.
But in Nigeria, we have now
Everybody wants to do
everybody. I used to make an example of the wedding party. The wedding party was a collabo of about 4 production companies. There was Ebony Life. There was Film One, which is the distribution. There was Inkblot, which is market production services. And then there was Koga Studios, who had the equipment.
Right.
We need to collaborate. A tree cannot make a forest. You need a community to make a film. So you need to collaborate. Some of the most successful films that have come out of Nigeria are a product of collaboration. Then the other 2 is that we need to upskill, not just the actors. We must upskill in terms of camera people, in terms of editors, in terms of makeup artists. In fact, presently now, each time you just ask them who can handle effect, they will tell you Hakim effect, because they can just count one person. But we should have, in this kind of industry, we should have them like on our fingertips. The other day I was asking for a sound man. They were calling the name of somebody who had passed on like 5 years ago. We need to have people, skilled people in those areas that we stand. We shouldn't do our productions and invite foreigners to come and shoot for us. Almost 30 years after digital Nollywood and all that, we should have people. We should be counting 1 or 2 cinematographers. In fact, the way the country is, if you have 5 big productions, you can't have them running at the same time because you have the same actors, the same camera people, the same. So we need to upskill in those areas. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Again, I'd like to ask, I really don't know if there's an interface between your agency and the streaming platforms. An example would be, sometimes when some of those movies are released on those platforms, you hear people in the diaspora say, we can't watch this in the US. Yeah. We can't watch this in the UK. And some will say, oh, use VPN or use this. And, this is a problem. So is there anything that can be done, especially when productions are released in Nigeria? They should also be able to be streamed across those platforms in other countries. Do you know why this is like that at the moment? And what are we doing to address this issue?
There are some of these countries that have very strong censorship and classification regulation. That's one. Okay. So there are some things in your content that will not fly in some of those countries. They will say no. I once mentioned that I was in Cyprus. I was trying to watch a musical video that was dropped by a popular musician in Nigeria. and I couldn't watch it in Cyprus.
Wow.
That's because they told me that this content is not allowed in this territory. And why? Because a lot of smoking, a lot of holding of red cups, alcohol, and all that, a lot of ladies being used as commodities in their films and all that.
But we allow that in Nigeria.
Oh, well, somehow we are allowing that, but our classification rules now will not allow that, because there's a lot of these things that are allowed to just go. So most of the time when you tell them that they should make their content, in fact, there are some territories, they don't like to see blood in your film. So an intelligent filmmaker will turn that face of the film to some kind of black and white.
Oh,
and we'll be we're very deliberate about certain shots that he allows in his film. But here,
glaringly.
In fact, you cut somebody's head, you don't see it coming out. Pouring out. I know that.
Oh,
you know?
no.
And when you tell them, they will say, oh, you are censoring them, you are censoring. But what we do now is classification. So we'll rate it. We'll say, okay, somebody who is less than 18 cannot watch this. And they don't want that kind of rating, because they want everybody to get into the hall to see their films. So if you know that your film cannot be seen in those areas, and then some of them, the quality of production equipment that they use to make their films, you know, is so low. You need to invest in quality equipment so that by the time they are showing you, you know, there are sometimes you put a film on, you'll be wondering whether, where did they make this film? It's so blurry, you know, but use quality equipment so that once your film gets on a platform, it will be seen elsewhere.
Sorry, Bukola, just to add to that would be, but if they are productions commissioned by those streaming platforms, they should be rest assured that it will be quality, and so should allow those movies to stream in all those countries that they are. Is that also not one of the things that they should work on? At least still show those ones that they've commissioned. Since they have decommissioned, you know, their projects here in Nigeria. So
their problem is actually some of the things that we allow in our movies. You know, some of those fetish stuff and all those ones that they allow. In some territories, they don't allow them.
They don't allow them. Okay. All right, Bukola, go ahead with your next question.
Okay, so I want us to talk about scripting. That's a very important aspect of filmmaking. So what's your take on scripting? Taking a look at Nigerian movies now, the ones we have on YouTube, and then the ones we have in the cinema now. What's your take on our scripting?
I think you nailed it when you said it's the foundation of everything. If we get our script right, everything will work right. Presently, we are doing so well, especially that we are telling narratives that connect with the people and all that. But we need to improve. We need to improve, especially in the folk area. Okay. You know, or people who make films in local languages, in Hausa, in Igbo, and the rest of them. We need to improve in those areas. There are some films that you watch and you'll be wondering whether this has a script indeed, because they will just be talking and they will just be assuming that we know what is going to happen next and all that. But we need to work on our script, and that's why, you know, in the first quarter of the next year, we're working on, we're going to have a lab with script writers. Okay. Because if you get the script right, the story will be right. It will just be for the director to interpret the vision, you know, to bring it out, and then at the end of the day, we'll see that this is the vision of the director as far as this narrative is concerned. So we are going to work on script. And thankfully, the people we have at the head of the Scriptwriters Guild of Nigeria are very professional. Okay. And they have been having workshops, they have been having seminars to ensure that they improve in that area. The other problem we have is that not all of these scriptwriters belong to this guild. Okay. Some of them, because they are English graduates, because they know how to string words together. Right. They just come and write a script and then sell it to someone. And the person, without consulting with the scriptwriter, just goes ahead and make the production. But things are getting better in the industry. We're beginning to identify the professionals, and we're beginning to make sure that the professionals take the front row, you know, as far as filmmaking is concerned. And 2025 will be a lot better. Okay.
I mean, so we need to allow you go, but before you go, you've just touched on the fact that 2025 will be a lot better. So if you'd like to just briefly again, what the assurances that we have here that 2025 will be a better year for film producers, the actors, and the viewers
too.
Of course, and the viewers, the creatives generally.
All right. With these funds that are in place, both at the federal and some of the state governments who are giving grants and all that to filmmakers to make films, one is hoping that the issue of funding will, will be a thing of the past.
Okay.
Then with the IP policy that we have gotten, where your intellectual property is your collateral, a lot of people will approach and get funding from banks, whether conditional and non-conditional grants or even loans.
Okay.
With even the streamers saying, oh, we are going to be commissioning films, I am envisaging that a lot of other streaming platforms and other distribution platforms will come into the scene. Already we have circuits that have come.
Yes.
It's a video on demand platform. There are more that will come because Nigeria has content. In fact, we have not scratched enough of the content that we can make as a country. So we have content. Okay. There are more people coming. A lot of people have been trained. Not too long ago, I was at the MultiChoice Foundation Talent Factory. And if you see the number of filmmakers they are turning out, it means that next year there will be an explosion of filmmakers and all that. And there are so many training schools in the country, that will bring out talents. And it's just now what we'll be talking about is that will there be space for them to show the films, to distribute the films and all that. That's what we should be concerned about. And our interest is to make sure that we have more distribution facilities, we have more cinemas. Me, I am a fan of cinema. I grew up watching cinema, and I believe that if we have 774 cinemas in each local government in Nigeria, we will not provide only access to these films, but it will be more revenue for government and also revenue for the filmmakers, and then it will create jobs.
And more enjoyment for the
viewers.
Bukola is so particular about the viewers.
I am.
Okay, time is fast spent.
You have a question?
Just one, and I hope you answered it very briefly. You chaired the AMA Selection Committee for about 16 years. Yes. Can you tell us what makes a good movie? What are the things you look out for?
It must have very good production value, apart from the narrative being correct.
Okay.
If the narrative have plot holes, then there's a problem. Plot holes means that you are, for instance, you say that somebody is so rich, and there's nowhere in the story where we're told the source of his wealth.
Wealth, okay.
The man begins as a bank manager, and he ends up, we've not seen him in that bank one day, and all that, and all that. So if those narrative has plot holes, then there's a problem. So your narrative has to be correct from the beginning to the end. There must be a cause and effect factor in your narrative, and then your production values have to be high. And what are those production values? If you are using music, it has to be right. If you are using sound effects, it has to be right. Now they are doing something that is not too right, where you see the same effect in one film, you see it in another film, and all that. If you are using that, it has to be right. Dialogue has to be right. All those elements in film, your production design has to work, has to be in consonance with the film. You can't be doing, you can't, for instance, in a room, and you say, this is how it happened. You will now go back, that you are going back to 1970. and in the frame, there is Baba.
You can see Olamide.
You just say, Baba, buy low cherry. 1970. They will even write it boldly. 1970. Then on the frame, we'll now see Baba Jide Sanwo-Olu.
Oh my God, how did that happen?
Our contemporary Sanwo-Olu.
Yes,
so your production design has to be correct. It has to. Then, of course, the continuity has to be correct. You will see 5 bottles on the table. There's water. They will just move from one scene to Bukola, and by the time they come back, the thing will get filled up again.
How did that happen?
I begin to wonder. A guy comes in with a ring from beginning of the film. Mid-film, you won't see the ring again, and he is not divorced. Or there was nowhere he told his wife that I'm going to throw away the ring and all that.
So I mean, these are little details.
Little details.
Pay attention. If it doesn't work for me, I'm sure it's going to work for everybody. Right. So we get it out from the selection process before we begin to consider it and all that.
Dr. Shaibu, I mean, it's always a pleasure having you here, because usually time is never enough when we have you.
on the program. But I'm sure that a lot of our viewers do not also know that Dr. Shaibu is a very good dancer.
Yes, you don't know. Hey, he's a dancer.
Yes,
he
no.
will dance.
He's going to dance for us today. he's a good dancer.
This
so
is
you're
a
going.
coup.
He's a coup. And you're going to dance for us today. And of course, we have our guest who should be on the Lagos set this morning. He's Alaga Joko Alaga Duro. He's a man of many parts, you know. And of course, him and his teammates are going to give Dr. Shaibu some dance, you know, and song this morning for him to just show us a little bit of his skill on the program today.
Yes.
We sincerely thank you for finding time to be here on the program. It's always a pleasure when we have you here, and we wish you the very best in the next year.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so of course, the very next voice you will hear will not be Frank Edoho, but of course, will be the drummers, and of course, our guest this morning, who will just take Dr. Shaibu through something very short, just for us to just show you his skills here. So you can go.
Ilé ọkọ.
You can take off your mic.
Ẹ̀kọ́ akẹ́tẹ̀ ilé ọkọ. Dr. Shuaib, alọ́dẹ́dẹ́ kò máa ma já. Ẹ̀kọ́ àrọ́ mi sá lẹ́gbẹ̀lẹ́gbẹ̀. Honestly, alọ́dẹ́dẹ́ kò máa ma já. Ẹ̀kọ́ àrọ́ mi sá lẹ́gbẹ̀lẹ́gbẹ̀. Ó dáná onídòdó onímọ̀-ímọ̀-í. Gànjọ́ alákàrà onígúgúrú nígbà tí ó ta tó gbé gbàgàlẹ̀ kí lẹ wí ẹ̀wà wòjà níláfíà. Yẹmi bá mi gbé mi sọ fún mi tẹ́lẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀ wípé Èkó àkété ìlú ọgbọ́n tó bá dúró kò ṣọ́ra oníyàn bí Èkó gbàgbẹ́rẹ́. Don't worry, you will still dance because there's still time for you to dance. But we need to allow Dr. Shaibu go. Dr. Shaibu, Dr. Shaibu, thank you so much. It was a boom. We'll take a quick break and the conversation returns shortly.